My name is Dana Nichols, and this is my son Jacob Nichols. He goes by Jake. He is 8 years old and is just finishing up second grade in a couple of days.
Yeah.
2 more days, right?
Mhm. I like to play on the computer a lot. And I really wish I could be rich. I like to read books, and the books I really like are World War II books. And sometimes on the computer I look at pictures, and the pictures are of aliens, which is pretty cool. There is some pictures. There is one picture of Hitler shaking hands with an alien, and there are also files of Nazi UFOs. And sometimes I look at pictures of ghosts too.
And we also have Rachel, who's 6, who's being a little shy today, but she might warm up in a few minutes. His interests have changed some over time. He tends to learn everything there is to know about one thing, and then he moves on to the next. And so that's becoming more frequent. He's getting more and more interest in learning about more and more things. He learned everything there is to know about space and still retains all of that. And then, was it the military? That was your next big... Oh,
Yeah.
Weather before that, right? He's very interested in weather and all kinds of natural disasters. So, hurricanes, tornadoes, you name it.
Earthquakes,
Yeah.
volcano eruptions.
Flooding. Jake also likes to build things. So he's always been very interested in building train tracks and blocks, and his newest hobby with that is we got him some home designer software, so he's been building fabulous houses for us.
Yeah, but what about aliens and ghosts?
Yeah, that's kind of a newer one as well.
Yeah.
So he's disappointed when we go to Dayton that they won't let us in the part where the aliens are. What's it called?
Hangar 18.
Hangar 18. We haven't gotten to visit that yet.
We'll probably never will.
Well, Jake is very articulate. He's always been a very good communicator. When he was around, even before he was 2, he was holding full conversations with us, and people couldn't believe it, but he's our first child, so we just thought that was normal. So he's very communicative from an early age. He's very, very smart. He has almost photographic memory. Pretty much anything Jake sees or reads, he remembers. He can play all kinds of things in his head. He can play whole SpongeBob episodes in his head. So
Yeah.
he's a very big SpongeBob fan. So he's very smart and has a really good memory. He's very kind, a very kind boy. He likes to look out for his little sister a lot, and he likes to help her figure out what she should be doing quite a bit. Jake is very funny, which a lot of Asperger kids are more literal than Jake is, but Jake has a very good sense of humor, and he's very funny. He's really good at doing impressions. You want to do any impressions for us?
Which one?
I don't know. You have any in mind?
How about the British?
Let's hear it.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very good British accent, isn't it?
Very good. He likes books, so he reads and reads and reads, and the types of books that he reads are more like encyclopedias than what most second graders would read, I think. He likes history generally, in addition to his other interests. What else, Jake? How would you describe yourself to someone who doesn't know you?
Well, besides the other things you've covered, somewhat unique.
Yeah. What makes you unique, do you think?
I have Asperger's.
Yeah.
And pretty much covered everything else.
Think so?
Yeah. Well, it's not really different from usual kids, but most Asperger kids are more smart, and they usually take on interest at an early age. And usually they move from one interest to another as they grow. Some interests could last as long as about 2 years, maybe just 2 weeks. I have this thing called private time where it's like this little world inside my head, and also I walk around and make noises. So it's very important for me to have it all by myself, but the only person I do it with is one of my grandmothers. I call her Granny. She's very nice and she understands me. So she always, most of the time when I'm at her house, we have private time together. Sometimes I really don't like too much attention. Yeah, this amount of attention is okay, but just too much, like worldwide, not.
So you don't like to be the center of attention?
Maybe countrywide, but not worldwide.
Oh, okay. So we should limit this to the United States, the distribution.
Yeah. Maybe United States, Mexico, and Brazil.
Oh, okay.
Well, like most kids, I want them to treat me nice. And I really don't want them to make fun of me because I have Asperger's. Because that will make me kind of angry and sad. A few teachers at school. There's Miss Johnson, who's done a great deal of things to make me comfortable at school. And then there's Miss Sheets, who's a very good homeroom teacher. And then there's Miss Candy, who is Miss Johnson's only one of Miss Johnson's general assistant. And I want to thank her for helping me too. When I come for the sensory room, she checks my chart. And then at the end of the day, she checks my chart and then gets me all the tokens. And then sometimes she gets me a banana buck if I have a super day.
That's great. What about Miss Blevins?
Yeah, she's been very helpful too.
Miss Blevins is the school counselor. So sometimes when Jake's having a little bit of a hard time and he needs a break from the classroom, he'll go see Miss Blevins. She's very kind. We had a bit of a journey to before we found out that Jake had Asperger's. We noticed when Jake was really young, although he could communicate really well and he was good at a lot of things, there were some things that he didn't like to do. Like he didn't really like to feed himself that much, and he needed a lot of help with his shower and getting dressed and that type of thing. And we noticed that he didn't like bright lights, or he didn't like a lot of noise, and he didn't like his clothes to be too tight. He didn't like tags in his shirts and that kind of thing. So actually, when he was 2, he started going to Montessori school. He had stayed with his grandmother, Granny, as he referred to her earlier, up until he was 2. And then in order to help him with some of his personal skills, we decided that Montessori might be a good idea. And he went to Montessori school for a year. And he did learn how to do a lot of things at Montessori school. They also had a tasting program, and so at first he wouldn't eat very many different things, but through his tasting program he started eating more things, and when he would notice what the other kids were bringing for lunch and that kind of thing. So it did really help him to start being more social. But it was also our first clue that Jake was special. So he was actually evaluated by First Steps right before he turned 3, which of course in that program you age out at 3. But he was able to get an assessment done, and the first, diagnosis that we received was sensory integration processing disorder. So it was all the not liking hot and cold and bright and loud noises and all that, which we still have a little bit of issues with, right, Jake?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then from there, he went to Good Shepherd Preschool, and he had a very wonderful preschool teacher at Good Shepherd who seemed to really get Jake, which was great. And she really would spend a lot of time with Jake. Jake did not take naps. He's never been a real great sleeper until just the last little bit. And he would never take naps, so she would take that time and they would get on the internet and pursue his interests. And she got him feather boas and things that he liked to touch and play with. And so he was seeing Dr. Blair here locally, a pediatrician here locally. He was very wonderful with Asperger's and autism and all kinds of things like that. And Jake was having a little bit of trouble focusing and was detaching from the rest of the kids a lot. And so Dr. Blair felt like maybe Jake might have ADHD. So we got some medication for that, and it did help him to be more calm and to just have an easier time at school. And so we stayed at Good Shepherd, and then in his kindergarten year, Dr. Blair really started to believe that Jake might have Asperger's. Dr. Blair has 2 siblings with Asperger's, so he knows what it looks like. So as we spend more time at school and more time with other kids, and some of the social differences started coming out, Dr. Blair referred Jake to Cincinnati Children's Hospital for evaluation. And so then we went to see Dr. Manning Courtney, and she's the director of the Autism Center at Cincinnati Children's. And she put Jake through a bunch of tests, and we got to meet a lot of really nice people. At Cincinnati Children's, Jake was actually asked to participate in a grant from the Eunice Shriver Kennedy Foundation. And it was for kids who had first been diagnosed with ADHD, who were suspected of possibly having autism. And so it turned out that Jake was in that category. So he still has his ADHD diagnosis. Are you tired, Jake?
Yeah.
But he was formally diagnosed with Asperger's when he was 5.5, and also anxiety disorder, which runs in my husband's family. So then that allowed us to start accessing services. My husband and I both are employed through state government, so we have very good health insurance. And through Dr. Blair's assistance and Dr. Manning Courtney's assistance, we were able to get Jake into occupational therapy and physical therapy and behavioral therapy weekly. And so Jake's been doing that for 2.5 years, and it's really paying off. Right, Jake?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Jake has had some great services, and he's made great, unbelievable improvement. Dr. Manning said he may not even always have an Asperger diagnosis because he's made such great improvement. So we're super excited at how hard he has worked all these years. So the key people who kind of steered us in the right direction were, first of all, school personnel at the Montessori school who noticed, even at 2 and 3, that something was happening. And so that's how we first, knew to go to First Steps. And then, his preschool teacher would say, I just haven't found the thing that will work for Jake. I know there's a thing that we just haven't found it yet. So just really, the teachers, his preschool teachers were really helpful.
She found some gold, but not the gold mine.
That's right. And actually, we were seeing another doctor in Dr. Blair's practice who really doesn't believe in sensory processing disorder, and a great doctor, but just not really focusing in this area. And once we just would describe, people got to know Jake, and it was just a friend who said, you may want to see Dr. Blair. Of course, I saw Dr. Blair when I was a kid, and this friend just said, Dr. Blair's really good with this kind of thing, and maybe he might, be able to help you, figure out exactly what's going on and to help Jake be successful. Another thing that we realized, we had Jake at a private school here in town, which is a fantastic school, and my husband went there, so of course we have a bit of a bias toward going there, but it's a fabulous school, small class size, really structured, great academics, but they really don't know what to do with a kid with Asperger's. So even though it had a lot of the things that were good for Jake, there was just a piece missing. So we did some research and found that Collins Lane has some really great services for kids with special needs, and also has very, very good academics and high test scores. And I talked to some other parents who, said, if you have a special needs kid, they have a really good program. So this is Jake's first year actually at Collins Lane, and he's had a fantastic year. His teacher actually used to be a special ed teacher. So as you can see, we've kind of lucked into things a lot along the way. Things have kind of broken our way. So his teacher this year, in addition to having a special ed teacher who's Miss Johnson, who he's talked about, Miss Sheets, his classroom teacher, having that experience as a special ed teacher has really been fantastic. And she has a lot of great instincts about when Jake is pushing the envelope and when he really is having a hard time. So it's good to know the difference. I won't say that it's been a year without challenges, because Jake is new to them and they're new to Jake and us. So one thing that I think I would point out to parents is just that you know what works best for your child. And of course you have to work within a system, and it's a bit of a dance because you want to have a partnership with school personnel, but you also have to say, hey, this isn't working for him and you need to look at this a different way perhaps. And my husband and I recognize we're not experts on education, so we don't know how to educate an Asperger kid. But we do know what stresses him out and what makes him happy and when he's going down a bad path. So we've had to, work with them some. They do have a sensory room also, which has been great for Jake at Collins Lane, which is another reason why we pursued. It's not our school. We actually live in the city district, but we got special permission for Jake to go to Collins Lane because, of the good things that we had heard. But I think we've got most of the issues worked out at this point, and he's had a fabulous year. They're really, his teachers are so proud of him and really impressed with the progress he's made, and his test scores are through the roof, and he's really learned a lot this year. He's made a lot of good friends, but I still think he's pretty happy about getting out of school. Also, his behavioral counselor, who's a licensed clinical social worker, right, Miss Cindy? She's one of the most important people for Jake. And we've been really lucky because we've had the continuity of being able to see her the whole time. So she totally gets Jake, and she's been working with him since he got his diagnosis pretty much every week. And then she'll have appointments with my husband and me because we need to learn as much as Jake